One of the great things about Adobe Bridge CS3 is the many different workspaces that they have pre-built in here for you, and also the ability to actually customize a new workspace to specifically fit your needs. So let's go ahead now and take a look at some of the default workspaces that ship with the Adobe Bridge CS3. The quickest way to access these workspaces is to come down here in the bottom right hand corner of the Bridge interface and check on these little boxes down here. They're labeled 1, 2, and 3. Now in previous versions of Bridge you would have seen the specific workspaces actually shown to you in different icon form. For instance, there was one for the vertical film strip, the horizontal film strip, and for the default. Now, in Bridge CS3, we have the ability to click on these and choose from a flyout menu from all of these different types of workspaces. Now they also have keyboard shortcuts assigned to them so that you can quickly jump from one workspace to the other. So if you wanted to, you could familiarize yourself with all of these keyboard shortcuts and you'd have a much easier way of switching in between different workspaces here inside of Bridge. For instance, let's go ahead and take a look now at the light table view, which is just going to give you kind of a big slideshow type preview of all of your images here in this big horizontal pane. Now you don't get any of your metadata or filtering or any type of other panes here, so this is kind of a hindrance to me because I don't really like this particular view much for my workflow. So let's go ahead now and take a look at some of the other workspaces here inside of the Bridge CS3 by clicking on this little icon again. For instance, let's go ahead and switch to the metadata focus. And in this particular workspace, you'll see here that you get a full preview of all of the metadata that's associated with each individual image here. So if I scroll up and down, you'll notice that all of these images, it shows the date created, the date modified, the size of the file, the document type, and it also shows all of the settings that were used for the particular camera that was used, such as the ISO setting, shutter speed, focal length, and it also has the color profile associated with each image as well. So this is a great view for analyzing image data. This is not actually good for previewing the actual content of the images. So in order to get a better preview of the images, we're going to have to switch workspaces again. So let's come down here and we'll click on this icon again and let's try one of the film strip views. These are usually useful for previewing images. So I'll select horizontal film strip, or you can simply hit Control F5 on the PC, Command F5 on the Mac, and you'll notice here that we get this nice horizontal film strip at the bottom and we have this large preview area up here at the top. And if I click on one of these images, I get a nice preview of that image up there in that preview window. And if I cycle through all of these images simply by tapping the arrow keys on my keyboard, you'll notice that we get a nice preview of each individual image as I cycle through here. This is a great way for comparing images here inside of Bridge, and then also a good way of analyzing specific images when accompanied with the new analyzing tools that Bridge has built into it. And we're going to get to those in just a few minutes. So let's take a look now if we wanted to build our own workspace in Bridge, because I really don't like this particular workspace because there's a couple of things missing. For instance, I don't have my metadata panel and I don't have my keywords panel and stuff like that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create our own custom workspace and we're going to save that here inside of Bridge so that we can use it over and over again each and every time we use the program. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to reset this workspace. So I'm going to click back on the icon and I'm going to choose default, or I could simply hit Control F1 on the PC, Command F1 on the Mac, and that's going to take me back to the default Bridge workspace here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start building my own workspace simply by dragging and dropping these little areas of the Bridge to wherever I want them to be. So for instance, if I want a bigger preview window, all I have to do is take the preview tab, click on it, and drag it over. When I see that little gray bar appear at the top there, or on Macintosh you would see probably a dark gray bar or even a black bar here, depending on the color of your user interface. When you see that black bar there, you can just go ahead and you can drop that in. And when you do that, you'll notice the preview pane drops right on top of that content window. However, the content window is still much larger than the preview window, and it's also taking up a lot of that screen real estate that I want to use for the preview pane right there in the center of the screen. So what I need to do now is move the content window. So let's just click on the content tab, we'll drag it over, and we'll drop it right on top of the metadata and keywords over here. So we'll just take it, wait for that gray bar to appear, and drop it in. So now I have this nice vertical film strip type setup for my content window over here on the right hand side, and I have my nice big preview window in the middle. So we're going to start now to move some of the other panels around here, and we're going to start by clicking on the metadata tab, and we're going to just click and drag it over, and we'll place it at the bottom of the filter tab so that I have all of my information tabs over here on the left hand side, and I want all of my imaging analysis to be done on the right hand side and in the middle. So let's go ahead now, we'll drop this in. That automatically adds it to the bottom, and I also want to group my keywords with my filters because filtering and keywords, in my opinion, go hand in hand. So let's go ahead now, we'll click on this, we'll drag it over, and we will just drop this in once we see the gray bounding box appear around the filtering window. So let's go ahead and we'll drag this over, we'll drop it in once we see that, and now those are docked together in a nice little group right there. So now we've created a nice custom workspace here, and the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to adjust the size of my thumbnails over here on the right because they're just a little bit big. So I'm going to size those down quite a bit. And I'm also going to drag in this sidebar here just so I have enough room so that I get a nice big preview here in the center of the page. Now, if you wanted to get a whole lot more room, if you wanted to have that maximum amount of screen real estate there, simply mouse over that center bar right in between those two panels, and then you'll get this little double arrow that appears, and all you have to do is double click when you see that, and you'll automatically hide that content window. So that's going to give you a little bit extra space there. This is especially handy if you're only working on one monitor and you're wanting to compare two images simultaneously. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to expand that back out by double clicking again, and that's going to let us go ahead and bring back up that content window for us to have right there on the right hand side so we can cycle through all of our images and then bring them over into our preview window to analyze. So now that we've got all of our workspace set up, we've got our metadata down here underneath our filtering and keywords, we've got our favorites and folders tabs right there, a huge preview in the middle, and a large content window on the right. Now we're ready to save this workspace so we can use it anytime we want to here inside of the bridge. So in order to do this, I'm going to come down here to the icons again. I'm going to click and hold on this, bring up this little dialog box, and I'm going to choose Save Workspace. And when I do that, I'm just going to type in Justin1, and I'm going to go ahead and say Save Workspace. Now I can also assign a function key to this if I wanted to, a keyboard shortcut. So if I wanted to say Control F8, I could automatically set that to that. Anytime I hit Control F8 now on my keyboard or Command F8 on the Mac, it will automatically jump to this workspace I'm creating right now, this Justin1 workspace. So let's go ahead now and we'll click Save. And once we've done that, Bridge has now saved that workspace down there in that icon so that anytime we want to access that workspace again, we could simply click that number one icon and we'd automatically jump back to that workspace. Or we could simply hit that keyboard shortcut, Control F8, to automatically activate that workspace as well. So now let's go ahead and implement this. Let's switch back for a second to the default workspace by going Window, Workspace, and we'll choose Reset to Default Workspace. And here's the default workspace of Adobe Bridge CS3. And what I need to do is I need to activate my workspace that I just created. So I can simply hit Control F8 on my keyboard, and there you see automatically my workspace changed back to that Justin1 workspace that we had there. Now, the same is true if I wanted to, let's go back to the default workspace for a second. If I wanted to go ahead and do that by clicking on the icon down here, since I went in originally through that little icon button, my workspace is now assigned to that button down there. So if I need to activate my workspace, I simply click on that, and it automatically updates my workspace there as well. Now, it should be noted that anytime that you choose a workspace from these little flyout menus down here, whatever workspace you choose at that particular time then becomes the default workspace for that particular icon. For instance, if I come down here and I choose default from those workspaces, you'll notice here that default is automatically checked as the new default workspace for that particular icon. The same is true for 2 and 3 as well. They work the same as the number 1. I was just using the number 1 as an example here for this particular demonstration. So let's go ahead now. We'll switch back to my workspace because this is actually the exact type of workspace that I use when working in Bridge. And now we're ready to start grouping and analyzing our photographs here inside of the Adobe Bridge CS3.